Let me give you, sadly, a small story of how I saw this play out in a negative way. Many years ago, I went to a church. It was quite some time ago. I'm getting to be an older man, so I'm starting to do those back in my day stories. And so everything seemed amazing at the church. Like you just go in there, people are super friendly. They've got a show up at the front. There's smoke machines, like they got the nice videos playing. I actually, for a little while, was, just totally not only enthralled, but serving there. And I kind of drank the Kool-Aid, they would say. However, as I got deeper and deeper into that relational side of things, I realized that something was pretty off. There was something fairly wrong going on. The whole church seemed to be chasing happiness, which was not something that over time, you know, uh, felt right. If anything, it felt good at the beginning, but it was kind of like you eat too, like it's nice to have a little bit of sugar, but if you eat too much sugar, it's not going to go well over time. What is the aspect of your youth you miss the most? Well, that's a fantastic question. I would say one of those things would be my ability to recover, and I love having a family, but me and my wife going out on dates. I think those would be two things of my youth that I would I would love to have back at times, especially after working out. The recovery sometimes takes a lot, and I've had a lot of back issues over the years, so I appreciate Master the question. That's pretty cool. Thank you so much for that. So I'm going to this church and I realize that something is super off. The whole church seems to be chasing happiness. And I didn't hear much about the friction that's going on in the world and the problems that we're facing or issues in general. It was all just about let's code everything over, everything's wonderful, high five, this and that. Now, there are people in the congregation who were lovely, who were going through things, who I could relate to, who I had connections with. And I would say some of these people were really great Christians that I did learn from. However, even though there were some people who were in the trenches, a lot of people were not. They were very frustrated. They would walk away from the church after a little while because there was just so many, almost glow in the dark Christians who are just so happy all the time and were not being real with one another. So this feeling started to grow and I started to dig deeper. And as I dig deeper, I started to realize that things, usually are problematic at the top or somewhere towards the top. Well, in this case, it sadly was at the top. And the top person was a very tall and handsome pastor. And nothing wrong with tall and handsome pastors. Fantastic. His wife was like a beautiful model. And nothing wrong with a handsome pastor and a beautiful wife. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's actually wonderful. If you can look the best you can, as long as you're not causing other people to stumble, all the power to you. And they were just that. They were a power couple. And so their smiles were super white. Their hair was done in a lovely way every time. Their clothes were pressed to perfection. They literally looked like they were coming out of a model magazine. Their laugh would rumble through the halls of the church. They had great promos online. Their posters were filled with tons of excitement, great shots, photo shoots. There was always, they were just always holding someone like a marginalized child, or they were going on adoption trips. They had tons of clips and movies in their sermons. And I was getting a lot of motivational speeches when I was coming to church on Sunday. And it was nice for a little while. But after some time, you're not getting much substance. You're just like, okay, I might have actually already seen this clip before. And they weren't talking about other areas of their lives. It was just, again, this constant pursuit of chasing happiness. And then inevitably, it started to kind of connect the dots, and it felt like it was a lot about health and wealth and prosperity. And there is nothing wrong with those intrinsic values. I think if health and wealth and prosperity as a whole is spiritually driven and done for your benefit, for eternity, for other people, to help other people, love other people on multiple layers, and I think that these words that have been hijacked by certain people groups and situations, they should be re-won for the kingdom. They should do well for the kingdom. However, in this context, the pursuit of happiness, the chasing of happiness, led to a constant state of health, wealth, and prosperity. And like I said before, in the moment it felt fantastic to hear some of these messages. And I was still pretty young. I didn't have much theology behind me. I hadn't coached and helped hundreds, if not thousands, of people at this point. And again, for that short time, I would have these little glimpses, these feelings that there was something a little bit off. Now, as I've gotten older over the past 15 to 20 years, I can spot them out because I live by that rule of not first impressions, but I try to give first 10 impressions to make sure that everything flows, to make sure that the people are not lying to me, to make sure that I just didn't catch them on a good day or a bad day, and the other 8 or 9 times they are really kind to me. So I've seen this now in a lot of churches over the years, and I will call people out at different levels, whether it's on the serving areas or the eldership or the pulpit, and I'll have private conversations to kind of see where the depth is. Are these people pursuing this idea of happiness, this fakeness, or are they pursuing something deeper relationally? And I would say with a high percentage, I can't give you, the percentage in an actual number, but a high percentage, these situations, these ways of operating a church or at work or all the different things we've talked about, they just don't last. People cannot sustain a character where they're just chasing happiness. It's impossible. It's an emotion. You cannot chase an emotion your entire life. I know you might have that angry uncle who's always angry, or you might have that person in your life who's always just weeping and crying, but no one really sustains an emotion all the time. And when you're consistently chasing happiness, this emotion, you will crack. And when you crack, it will be usually really messy, because it's not that emotion is not attached to joy. If it is attached to joy, it's fantastic, which we'll get into. But when it's not attached to God's joy, it inevitably will fall apart. And so the establishment may not fall apart, but the human beings do. Let me say it again. The establishment may not fall apart, but the human beings do. Regrettably, after leaving that church, I found out that pastor and his wife are now divorced. That pastor is sadly now an atheist. The church was greatly hurt. The elixir of happiness inevitably soured their stomachs and a lot of other people involved. This actually had happened to the previous pastor at the same church, and I can't say this for sure, but it looks like it's continuing to go down that road again. Now, let me just say this one more time. People can thrive, people can people can consistently feel like the pursuit of happiness and chasing happiness will lead them to somewhere wonderful. But it just doesn't have the substance. Again, it's like eating sugar and not getting sick off of it, and inevitably realizing that you're not going to get the nutrients, vitamins, the minerals, and everything that you need to go along with the rest of life. And usually that's what happens with youth, is again in that the chasing of happiness, you haven't matured to understand the long-term ramifications because your recovery is so high. You're connecting with other people who are pursuing that as well. The music videos, the TV shows, the movies, the streaming binges, all of these types of things are just giving you that nice little cute, quick dopamine hit. So what should we be going for? We should be going for joy. So let me try to reverse engineer this and help us away from this ledge of chasing happiness.